Hello, VGM Together. We're here to talk about game music concerts and orchestras around the world. My name is Mikko. I'm a game developer. I follow VGM concerts and tell them about them on Twitter as threads, and I also do panels like this. And with me, I have
Michelle Eng, and I am the founder of the University of Maryland Gamer Symphony Orchestra. I also started a YouTube channel called Gamer Symphony Dreams to help other people start a video game orchestra. Um, I also go by Meowsical VGM as a violinist online on YouTube and on Twitch, and I'm a violinist, and I just really love orchestral video game music. Okay, back to you, Miko.
So we're going to talk about Japan, the holy land of video game music, if you will, orchestral game music tours, video game orchestras, and game music festivals. I have a lot of stuff to go through, so we'll probably take questions afterwards as the Discord Q&A. So the first video game music concert ever was in Japan in 1987. But in order to understand how that came about, we need to talk about Koichi Sugiyama. He's a really highly influential, famous Japanese composer who has composed many things: pop music, commercials, anime, film music, art music. And in the like around 1985, he buys this digital version of shogi, this is the like Japanese chess, on his PC computer as an 8-bit version on diskette, released by Enix as it happens. And it comes with this feedback form, like that's how you get feedback in the era before internet. You put a postage stamp on it and put it on the post. So Koichi Sugiyama fills this in like tongue-in-cheek style, and it's sent to Enix. And Enix is like, "Oh wow, this famous composer sent us played our game. How wonderful!" So they ask him like, "Why don't you compose for our video games?" And so he does. Dragon and he arranges these symphonic suites, Kokyo Kumikyuku in Japanese, for also for Dragon Quest, as he had done for some of his anime soundtracks previously. And then he combined these two to be family classic concert. Now, in the 1980s, video games were still a new thing, and it can be hypothesized that not just any young video game composer could put up a concert like it had never been done before. Like, how could you do such a thing? But Koichi Sugiyama was so famous and influential that you couldn't just say no to him. Also, this was kind of a pseudo children's music concert. They also played like Carnival of the Animals in the same concert in the first one. But more would follow. They have actually done 33 family classic concerts. This is the Dragon Quest concerts per year graph. And also other video game music or concerts. There's this wonderful website tracking the Japanese game concerts that I'm fetching my data from. And there's an even more recent one that is even more comprehensive. Let me zoom in a bit. So we can see that the Dragon Quest concerts constitute maybe 1/4 of the Japanese game music concerts per year. And in this graph, you can kind of see what happened in 2020. Like a lot of concerts canceled or postponed for we all know why. But we can also see this is like the nature is healing graph. We get a lot of the concerts that were postponed in the 2020, and I think we're starting to see like the new post-COVID actually new concerts being produced now. So this is actually quite overwhelming to get into. There's a kind of language barrier and culture shock and all that. You can run all this stuff through Google Translate, but you don't necessarily get like correct translation every time. But I'm going to try to break it down as much as I can. So picture yourself as a Japanese game publisher. Chances are you already have your composers and arrangers on payroll. You already hold all the copyrights. You already have a game fan base. And you have merchandise to sell, including the soundtracks. All you just need, this is like a cooking recipe. All you need to add, you need an orchestra, a conductor, a concert venue, some ticket sales, and some marketing, and you have a game music concert. So one of the popular formats is to do like anniversary concerts. Just this year, we have Mana Series 30th anniversary concert, Ace Attorney 20th anniversary concert, Rayark, that's a mobile game developer, and Kirby 30th anniversary. And sometimes these get recorded and put into albums. They're quite often Japan exclusive, not just because of the language barrier, but also they just never make it to Western platforms. But sometimes they do. Here's a couple of examples, like the Kirby 25th anniversary, or you don't even need an anniversary to do a game music concert. You can also do like just concert for music's sake. Gran Blue Fantasies, this mobile game that also had music composed by Nobuo Uematsu. Because there's such a high demand for game music concerts in Japan, you also get these professional concerts just otherwise. Like the Game Symphony Japan that had its 57th concert earlier today, actually. They had online tickets available through Nico Nico. Mostly because it's already sold out and you can just sell more if you open it up to streaming. And that VOD is available until the end of the year. I want to also note that this is this is conducted by Kenichi Shimura, which is going to be important later. So there's like this is completely arbitrary, but let's say there are 4 types. Like you have your Dragon Quest concerts, you have your anniversary concerts, you have all sorts of other professional concerts. Now there's another mystery type, but I'll leave that as a cliffhanger. We'll figure it out later. To follow these, there's one website for basically Sugiyama. Top right one is really cool, has been tracking for a long time. And Game Music Footprints does these like yearly summaries and monthly summaries on what's going on in Japan. But that's not all. There are all these orchestral world tours. So in the 1990s, Sugiyama made these game music concerts where he invited a lot of Japanese composers to do orchestral arrangements and play them in an orchestra. And there were 5 albums made, and somehow Thomas Böcker got a hold of these albums in Germany. And Thomas Böcker was also already working for recording orchestral music for games companies and working in the business. So there was this game developer conference called Games Conference in Germany at the time. He had already experience working with Czech National Symphony Orchestra, and they had a nice concert venue called Gewandhaus Hall. So they wanted also to do this kind of concert in outside Japan for the first time, but this had never been done before. So they had a plan. They were going to just ask the original orchestral sheet music for the pieces and use it as is. But sometimes the games publishers were really confused, like, what, a game music concert? What are you doing? So it was difficult to find the correct person to ask for licensing. Sometimes the sheet music was lost, and you don't just take an orchestral score and just play it with an orchestra. You kind of end up tweaking the arrangements more than you really want to. But the concert was a big success. It was sold out, and there were a lot of important games industry people in the audience. And more concerts would follow each year. I'll get back to that a bit later. So Final Fantasy concerts is so big of a topic that it has its own Wikipedia article. But basically, long story short, the very first concerts were in Japan, and Jason Michael Paul was at the time working with Japanese clients, and they were like, why don't you produce the Final Fantasy concert in US? And so he does. Dear Friends in 2004 and follow up a year later. So just a side note, Jason Michael Paul ends up tries to do, play a video game symphony. That's your small piece of game music concert history available on Spotify to this day. He later ends up doing the Zelda Symphony and the Pokemon Symphony of Symphonic Evolutions tour. But is no longer producing game music concerts. However, if we look at the early 1990s website design for Play, a video game symphony, we can see that the young version in the tiny picture of Arnie Roth is the conductor for Play, a video game symphony. So that's how that happened. So Arnie actually ends up making his own thing, the Final Fantasy Distant Worlds World Tour. In the early years, there's actually consulting help from Thomas Böcker from Game Concerts brand. And the Distant Worlds. So the way it works is AVR Music, the company behind Arnie and so on, is in close collaboration with Square Enix on who's doing on the licensing, who's doing the arrangements and so on. AVR Music deals mostly with the concert production, producing the albums and marketing, whereas there's a close collaborations, which arrangements are okay with the composers, and really back and forth thing going on. And AVR music in turn works with your local orchestras, your local venues, and these are planned like way in advance. So you get the sheet music ready, you get the rehearsal schedule set up, and ticket sales and merchandise sale and all that. So Distant Worlds has been touring ever since 2007 to this day. They have over 200 concerts so far. They've also done this A New World tour, which is more like smaller ensembles where you can really hear each individual musician and each note being played. They've also done they've done that since 2014 with a couple of album releases and a couple of compilation albums with just the Final Fantasy VII music and just the Final Fantasy VIII music. Meanwhile, Thomas Böcker and the Game Concerts continued to do more game music concerts, and they wanted to do longer arrangements. There's this kind of story of how like Thomas Böcker and the arranger Jonne Valtonen and Roger Vaino were talking like there are sometimes these like ill-fitting hosts from outside gaming that try to do a like really elaborate joke and nobody laughs and it's just immersion breaking and not fun for anyone. So how do you get around that? You make a longer arrangements so you can just enjoy the music the whole time. Jokes aside, like longer arrangements really allow you to do is to tell stories. Like with one song, you can kind of set the mood, but with longer arrangements, you can really tell stories with the change of moods. So there are a number of different albums on Spotify that you can actually check out. Like for example, the Symphonic Fantasies is set up in like 4 parts, like you would in a symphony. It was also recorded separately in Tokyo. This is kind of like a classical music thing. Like even if it's the same piece, it's you have all these tiny little details in the expression of the music, so you can really hear like tiny differences. But picture this. So Dragon Quest Suite comes in 87. And Enix wants to do Final Fantasy Symphonic Suite in 89. It's I think we can agree that this is probably inspired by the Dragon Quest Symphonic Suites. However, this is not arranged by Nobuo Uematsu, who's not really into orchestral music at the time. And he actually wants just his vision of Final Fantasy music at the time is quite different. However, Nobuo Uematsu attends the game concerts in Europe, and after hearing the Symphonic Fantasies Jonne Valtonen's score to Secret of Mana, like a 40-minute arrangement, he agrees. He later agrees to arrangements like Final Symphony, like let's do the Jonne Valtonen treatment to Final Fantasy. So in Final Symphony concert and the associated album, you have like a symphonic poem from Final Fantasy VI, you have a piano concerto for Final Fantasy X, and you have symphony in 3 parts for the classic Final Fantasy VII, like the story of Final Fantasy told through music. As it happens, it's now 10 years later. The first Final Symphony was in 2013. So it's now the 10th anniversary Final Symphony performance in Birmingham. Game Concerts also did Skyrim 10th anniversary concert, really nice concert, and it's getting pretty close to their overall 20th anniversary. And they have another project. So to do with storytelling through music, they have this Meregnon Land of Silence thing. This is a symphonic fairy tale for children. It's not technically video game music, but it's composed by Yoko Shimomura and arranged by Jonne Valtonen. It's like stories told through orchestral music, anime style illustrations, and storytelling through a narrator. You can go to meregnon.com to there was actually a recording on in Sweden. You can check that out, and there it's of course best experienced live. There are tour dates coming. Speaking of long arrangements, this I don't have time to explain the full history, but Overlook Events in France is doing this Assassin's Creed symphonic adventure, and similarly, it's in 2 acts in 4 parts, taking all the different musical ideas from all the different Assassin's Creed games and all the different historical periods in one concert. It's coming up. There's more concert dates to come. There's another one in Barcelona, I believe. You probably know Video Games Live, over 500 concerts, multiple Guinness World Records, lots of material on YouTube. You just have to look for it. But not touring at the moment as far as I know, so won't spend too much time on it, but there are some 6-7 albums that you can check out, all the different albums through from level 1 through to level 6. But when so in Sweden, certain Urvar Säfström got his hands on a newspaper article that told about the Hollywood Bowl 2005 performance of Video Games Live in the US. And he was in talks with Malmö Symphony Orchestra about doing like a soundtrack music concert. So they end up doing like half and half of like classical music and video game music, and this they play at the Malmö Stortorget, the Grand Plaza. This is claimed to be a world record. I don't specifically know in which category, but that's what it's claimed. So Underscore Productions is unfortunately quite elusive. You can't find much information about it. They have a Facebook page, and that's about it. But they do these themed concerts. Score is very much themed around video games. There's one themed around bad guy themes. Sagas is all about fantasy music. We Come in Peace is all about sci-fi music. They do concerts around the Nordics, that is Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. What you may have run into is the Dragonborn Comes theme from by wonderful soprano Sabina Zwajaker. It's really great. They wanted to do like the Maluka Dragonborn Comes theme with also the orchestral arrangements. It's really cool. Another one, this is a little bit confusing. So La Fée Sauvage is French for the wild fairy. So they're the same thing, but kind of different branches, but also the same company overall. it's so thankfully we have this helpful map. Uh, they've also done many concerts before, and the latest one is the Crystalline Resonance, a piano concert. This is kind of like a continuation from the piano opera concerts back in the day. They have tour dates for all over the world, actually, coming up. Game On tour is also coming. I don't know much about this, but it survived COVID, so that's pretty impressive in my opinion. So I mapped out uh, where where the orchestral game music tours kind of tour, and they of course they tour the big cities. It makes the best business sense, but that still leaves a lot of cities where video game music concerts might be really rare, or you might have to travel long distances to reach one. I also did this internationally, and it's kind of the same story. Like it's very US, Canada, Western Europe heavy thing, uh, and also some of the bigger cities in New Zealand, Australia, and so on. But this doesn't quite cover everyone. But these also these concerts have inspired something. Uh, so big thanks to String Player Gamer. We wanted to understand like where people listen to video game music and how whether it correlates with where we might find like video game music orchestras and video game music festivals and so on. And like we found this graph really mind blowing. This is like the YouTube views divided by the country population. So video game music popularity by capita. This is what we found out. You can really see Chile stand out, Western Europe, Nordic countries even more than I expected. Like all the places you would expect, kind of. China doesn't really do YouTube, so maybe that doesn't count. And also, I think there's a slight mistake. Like the Japan is like too light of a shade of green. You see, there are two Undertale concerts on YouTube, one for the Japanese localization and one for the international audience. And if you like do a metric of like Undertale concert views per capita, Japan is like still way ahead. So it's time to reveal the mystery type of Japanese concerts. You see, in the early 2000s, in 2003 or so, there's this Nobuo Uematsu fan site, like brilliant early 2000s website design. And they're talking on the forums like, hey, it would be really nice to play Nobuo Uematsu's music together. So they formed the Little Jack Orchestra. And it's been conducted from the start again by Kenichi Shimura, really kind of important figure in the game music orchestra / game music concert area. So we entered the video game orchestras section of our talk. Now, there are actually so many game music orchestras in Japan that I can't go into great length. I'm just gonna maybe highlight a few here and there. Now, the first one is actually Famicom Band. It's like a student group in a Japanese university that originally wanted to do like skit with a musical backing, like a funny scene, as a school festival, like as a joke. And originally it was a joke until it wasn't. So that's kind of the first one. Uh, uh, there there are so many, like some are specialized into specific games. Luida, that's the name of the starting tavern in Dragon Quest. It's the place where you gather with friends to go on an adventure. It's actually a mandolin orchestra, mandolin ensemble. So it has like a really unique sound that you won't hear anywhere else. Music Engine is the orchestra that did the Undertale anniversary concert, and it wasn't actually the anniversary concert originally. It was just the regular seasonal Undertale concert. It was just that it was recorded and later uploaded as the Undertale 5th anniversary concert that you now find on YouTube. They're comprised of professional musicians that just want to do game music concerts as a hobby. Thanks K is a fan group dedicated to the music of Yoko Kanno, hence the name. Ritter der Musik, it's dedicated to Fire Emblem music, Tearing Saga, Westering Saga music. Famikoto is so koto is this Japanese instrument, like you pluck the strings, and the Fami is from Famicom, so it's video game music with traditional Japanese instruments. And funny thing, serendipity is actually the English word for lucky chance encounter. And what they do is they play like odd tracks are classical music, and the even tracks are soundtrack music. So whether you like classical music or video game music, you're going to run into chance encounters with beautiful music. So you get a serendipity either way. What's kind of really cool but also confusing about this scene is that they have these one-time/one-shot orchestras who might, like, let's say you're a fan of the music from the game Mother, and you really want to play music from that game. So what they do is they set up a website and Twitter account, and they do this kind of recruit members for like one concert specifically. So you get all these, like this year we also had Skyloft Orchestra playing music from Skyward Sword. Sometimes you get like specific years for when the orchestra is kind of intended to play. I believe there's like one project where they're trying to play Final Fantasy V music in 2025. Like you have to set realistic goals that you can actually achieve and like really dream big. You can also see kind of how there are some. I don't necessarily get all of these jokes, but there's probably the full symbology of how the game series and things are displayed on the orchestra logos. Sometimes they say things like reunion or second stage. That could mean they already had a concert, but they want to do it again. Um, and for example, and also like the Lore Star Orchestra is on Kirby Music. So that's for Japan, but I kind of hear that there's a similar thing happening in the US.
Yes. Thank you so much, Miko. Now I'm going to be talking about the orchestras or the GSO Gamer Symphony Orchestras in the US. So I'm going to be starting off with the origin story of the University of Maryland Gamer Symphony Orchestra, which I started in 2005 when I was a student at the University of Maryland. Originally, I got inspired to start this group because of Video Games Live, Dear Friends, Final Fantasy, and the Video Game Pianist. During this time, YouTube was still relatively new, and I think the only way I really found out about Video Games Live was through YouTube. And the reason I wanted to play orchestral video game music is because as a musician, I had started playing the violin since I was 9 years old, grew up playing in school orchestras, and I also grew up playing video games. And so when I saw Video Games Live, I thought, oh, that's so cool. But I wasn't quite satisfied because I didn't want to just be in the audience. I wanted to be on stage playing the music I grew up with and really connecting with that music. So, I decided to, at that time, I was in a school orchestra called the University of Maryland Repertoire Orchestra, which was for non-music majors. And, I just emailed my conductor and said, hey, there's this Video Games Live thing. I think it's cool. What do you think? And he just said, why don't you make an announcement at the next rehearsal? So I did. And, I didn't necessarily, I didn't go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to start a video game orchestra. I didn't know if it was going to work. It never been done before at the university level. And so I just took a risk with the encouragement of my conductor, and that's kind of how it started, very slowly, between 5 and 10 people in that very first semester. Second semester, I think we were about 15 to 20 people, and we had a lot of challenges we had to face, like, how to get the sheet music, how do we run a video game orchestra, things like that. And, the very beginning, we spent a lot of time learning music notation software because, let's just be honest, we didn't know what we were doing back then. We're just kind of like going with the flow and just trying to figure things out as we went along. So if you look at this picture on this slide right here, this was in 2006. So I started the group in 2005 in the fall. And by the time spring 2006 came around, this is who we had in the group. And we had, this was actually at our first official concert, which was for the University of Maryland band, fraternity, and sorority. That was our very first concert. And so we had quite a small start, but then we start to grow. And if you could go to the next slide. So in this slide, you're going to see that there's 3 pictures. The upper left is in 2006 fall when we moved to a bigger venue, and you see how the orchestra has grown. And basically at this time, YouTube was pretty new, Facebook was new. I advertised on campus, created a Facebook group, did a lot of your typical campus ways of advertising, like getting the word out on listservs. I put flyers up. We did chalking and things like that to try to get the word out. And we had a lot of people, at first it was like, we always struggled to get string players. I know that's a common thing, but over time you could see that the orchestra has grown. And I think as time went on, it became word of mouth. Where people would hear about they're like, hey, we want to join. So by the time 2006 came around, I believe by that point we were an official student group on campus where, you know, people could search us up on the student group database. Now the picture on the right here is in 2008. That's the spring. And this picture is the first time we performed at the Performing Arts Center. Prior to that, we had performed in smaller venues on campus. And you can see that there is a choir in this group because 2007, our GSO, the founder of the GSO choir, Chris Apple, he founded the GSO choir at the University of Maryland. And, you know, he was a vocalist who was very passionate about game music, and he wanted to join us, but at the time we didn't really have a choir. So from that point forward, we have incorporated a choir into the orchestra as part of the organization. And that particular concert was very significant because that was the first concert where we had the founder of OC Remix come out to actually watch the concert with some of his friends, and it was like the coolest experience. And that was also the very first concert in which we actually had to start turning people away from the concert hall because we were we filled to capacity. So that just shows how popular orchestral video game is. And then the bottom picture we have is in 2010, and you can see that the picture shows the orchestra has grown much larger, so each continuous year it had grown more and more and more. Now, if you go to the next slide, this is the University of Maryland GSO. I believe this was circa 2012. This was in the biggest recital or concert hall in the Performing Arts Center. And you can see the orchestra is massive now. And you have full percussion. In one of the prior pictures, we just had a drum set. That was the only thing that we could get access to at the time. So here we actually have access to a full orchestral percussion, which was significant for us. And we have a much larger choir as well. And you can see we have a large string section. And it just shows that over time, the orchestra has not only stayed relevant, it's grown more and more, and it's successful. And this, you can't see it from this angle, but this concert hall has a capacity of 1,100 people. And so it's been very, very successful. And then let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this, we're looking at a screenshot from when the UMGSO performed at the Smithsonian American Art Museum in 2012. And this was actually captured and broadcast on national TV in the United States by CBS This Morning. And it was broadcast to millions of Americans across the country. And for this particular news segment, you know, they interviewed me and a couple other people. And, you know, I didn't know it prior to them contacting me, but the producer of this particular segment said he had been following the UMGSO for several years and always wanted to do a news story on us. So this was pretty significant to be on a, you know, national show like this. And in this particular show, we were part of the exhibit on the art of video games put on by the Smithsonian. Which is, you know, one of the most famous museums, and it's located in Washington, D.C. So to be invited to that was really spectacular. So every year the GSO has not only grown in size, but it's gotten more opportunities that make it more and more famous. And I would have to say, you can't see it from this angle, but in the audience, there's actually 1,100 people in the audience. It's completely packed and filled. Fun fact, the composers Austin Wintory and Grant Kirkhope are actually in the audience watching this particular concert. And if you are interested in learning more about this particular event, they actually you can actually find a news story on YouTube if you just search for CBS This Morning and the words "an orchestra that plays video game music." So this was pretty fun. Okay, next slide. Okay, So now we have the UMGSO at the Kennedy Center in 2018, and so this is another historic achievement. For those who don't know, the Kennedy Center is the most prestigious performing arts venue in Washington D.C., and to be invited to be performing here is a really remarkable, excuse me, really remarkable accomplishment. And for this specific event, it was for a series called DC Current, which was for like pop culture, arts, that kind of thing. So the UMGSO performed there. I was part of that because many alumni were invited back just for that event. So that was very nice. And you can also find that on YouTube if you search for Gamer Symphony Orchestra and Kennedy Center. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so there are, besides the University of Maryland Gamer Symphony Orchestra, there's a lot of other GSOs or video game orchestras. And for these, I refer to GSOs are those who, for the most part, are community-based or university-based groups. So these are not necessarily professional musicians. They might just be doing it as a hobby or to have fun. And so you can see that there is different groups all over the world here. And like Miko said, there's a lot concentrated in North America and Europe and in Latin America, and also there's some in Asia as well. So if we go to the next slide, we have a bunch of university groups. And here you see UMGSO, you see 8-Bit, just to name a few, MIT Video Game Orchestra. And so there's different groups. Now, some of these groups combine video game music and anime music because there is some overlap, but some of them are exclusively playing only video game music. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so now I want to talk about the orchestras inspired by the UMGSO. So one question is, why are there so many GSOs or video game orchestras? And part of that reason was, I did some research the other day, and I saw that there's actually 9 GSOs inspired by the University of Maryland GSO, which is quite interesting. And I think it's because when you see someone has already done it, someone else has done it, it gives you the confidence to say, hey, I can do it too. So these are a list of GSOs, either community-based or at the university. And there's actually 2 at the high school level, which is very interesting. And out of these 9, if you go to the next slide, the 4 of them are actually started by alums of University of Maryland GSO. So people who had actually been musicians as part of UMGSO that later went on to start their own. And the reason why they did that is, I think many times is either they graduated from the school and they wanted to continue, or they moved somewhere else. They moved back home possibly, and they didn't have a GSO there. It used to be that in the UMGSO, when we graduated, we still stayed in the student group to continue playing. But at some point, the University of Maryland changed their policy so that all undergraduate student groups had to be 75% undergraduates. So that kind of pushed some of us graduates who were still playing with the groups out of the group just due to the policy. And it was at this time where the WMGSO, the Washington Metropolitan GSO, started in 2012. I was part of that initial group where we, the early days, we talked about like bringing a group of, creating a community ensemble, after we graduated from UM. And the Baltimore GSO is started in Baltimore by an alum of UMGSO, and so is Norwalk, which is located in Connecticut. And the Des Moines GSO has a very interesting history. It's founded by Aaron Barker, who is an alum of UMGSO, but he's also an alum of WMGSO. So that's like a double alum, which I think is really cool. And I think they've been doing fantastically. So let's continue. So here you can see some other additional video game orchestras or ensembles. For example, the Hitbox Music Ensemble in Hawaii. And we have Corear Orquestra de Videojuegos in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And there's actually quite a very, quite significant presence of VGM in Latin America. And then let's go to the next slide. We can also see that in the UK, there is a significant presence with the London Video Game Orchestra, Manchester Irish Video Game, and we also have some in places like Paris, France, Switzerland. Hong Kong has a Dojin Philharmonium, which is a mix of anime, VGM, pop culture, that type of music. Okay, next slide.
Yeah, I think. Oh yeah.
Okay, do we
Yeah, go on. No, wait. Yeah, it's your slide. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just quickly try to go through some of these. Okay, so the impact of the GSO, as you've seen that it's, it's inspired other people to start their own. But I think the reason why it also is, the reason, or I would say the impact it has on others is that the reason why people join is because there's, the search for meaning, where people need to have meaning in their lives to make it worth living. A lot of these we see in the stories in video games, especially through characters and art and the RPGs. And it's really because it's a story of what it means to be human, and we connect with that because it's a story about us. And for orchestral music specifically, it's meaningful because you can express the full range of human emotions. And if you look at orchestral music, a lot of this music tells stories of grand epic tales. And it's just everywhere in film and video games right now. Now, the experience of playing in the video game orchestra, it's been very impactful to people. I think it's part of it's reliving the story of the games, but also the nostalgia. I've met quite a few people who have kind of felt I would say like different or maybe like misfits or isolated in some way. But when they discover the GSO, it's like I feel like I'm finally home, and I found a community of people who really get me and really love the same thing as I do. And to create, to be on stage with like 100 other people doing that same thing is just incredible. And it has positively changed people's lives. I've had people say, their social circle has really expanded. And I even had like one person tell me, thank you for saving my life. So I've been very moved by the impact I've seen with the GSO. And I just remember one person said to me, thank you. What you've created is a sanctuary. So I feel very moved by everything I've seen through the GSO. So my mission, my mission is, I'd like to help anyone who wants to start a video game orchestra start one. So it would be cool if like every country had one, and every state, referring to the US, every state had one. Currently I stream, well actually I'm taking a break, but I'm coming back as Meowschool VGM on Twitch, and I'm going to incorporate more orchestral music and talking about these kind of more deep topics about orchestral video game music on my Twitch stream. But I also have a YouTube channel called Gamer Symphony Dreams. And these are just, if you look on the slide here, these are some examples of interviews I've done so far. So on Gamer Symphony Dreams, I provide tips and tricks for how to start and run your video game orchestra, but also I've done some interviews with founders of video game orchestras. Okay, so I think Miko, it goes back to you.
Okay, I'll try to finish this in the next 20 minutes. Let's see how I'll do. So one really curious thing I noticed is that apart from the other university groups, the, there are some that are from College of Music. And this is just my personal take, but I find these to be kind of like musically ambitious and really kind of experimental. So you can kind of really see this ambitiousness in if you just go and listen to their YouTube channel like recordings. One really and it's like some of these are kind of archived, like in Berkeley College of Music, there used to be a video game music choir, which changed their name to Pixel 8, which then I believe kind of integrated into Audire. I don't know how to spell that. And what really like if you really want to have your mind blown, check out the Zenzoku game music brass. I also want to highlight this one. This is from Royal Music College of Music in London. It doesn't have very many views, but I believe it deserves very many views, just as an example. Now, kind of the idea, like what happens when you graduate from College of Music, like you want to pursue music professionally, and maybe you're thinking like, could I play video game music or soundtrack music professionally? And these are kind of some features that I've noticed, like all of them try to aim for higher production value on their videos. They're trying to tour not just in the city they're in or in the local area, but throughout the whole country or internationally. They try to go for smaller ensembles to have a more affordable touring setup instead of a full-blown symphony orchestra, working with agencies and promoters and partners to get those gigs sorted out, working with games publishers, and usually also album production to get all of those revenue streams coming in. This one in Ukraine, so Lumos stands for Lviv Unique and Magical Orchestra of Soundtracks. And here you can see, like, this is kind of like a common theme. There's this huge overlap between orchestral, like video game music, film music, anime music, all that. There's one in Chile that also kind of the same theme, like doing part video games, part film music, part anime, all that. You can check that out. There's one in Argentina. The Power Up Orchestra is now 10 years old. That's just Spanish for video games, anime, and film music or movies. And interestingly, they're touring Argentina, Chile, Spain, like the Spanish-speaking Latin America, and like even Spain. So that's really cool. There's one in Russia, cinema and game music orchestra, same theme, a little bit of anime, a little bit of video game music. And the funniest thing happened when Video Games Live went to Japan in 2009. So there's this guy, Yusuke Ichihara, who attends the concert and is like, wow, there's this specialized orchestra that just tours the world and plays video game music all over the world. Like, how come there's this thing overseas and not in Japan? Like, there should be one in Japan, surely. What he didn't know at the time, but realized later on, is that, of course, Video Games Live just hires a local orchestra. It's just not necessarily like signposted on the Video Games Live posters all the time. So he later kind of reflects back that it seems my misunderstanding led to the birth of a professional game music orchestra in Japan. Now, this was originally called Japan BGM Philharmonic Orchestra. And uh, like they tried to do it like in a really big way professionally, but like it's not easy to run a professional video game music orchestra. So kind of ran into trouble, and like it's not as easy as making a kick-ass concert. You also have to do marketing and like all that business stuff. So what the original founders came to the conclusion that it's actually better to do it as like as a non-profit, so that like there are professional musicians working in the music field and doing like video game music as a hobby. It's like more creative freedom to go non-profit, so you're not so oriented on selling the most possible tickets. But it's actually split into two. There's this other group called Japan Game Music Orchestra that really went on to try to do this professionally, like full-time professionally, like huge amounts of concerts before COVID, lots of albums. Unfortunately, those albums are Japan exclusive or timed exclusive. Really hard to get your hands on. Now the top album is actually they did a Yuzo Koshiro concert, Ancient Festival. So the New Japan BGM Philharmonic Orchestra recorded the Actraiser Symphonic Suite. And this is one of those albums that you can actually get your hands on, although my video is flipped. Whereas with Yakumo, one of their really big projects was the Suikoden Symphonic Suite. That's quite expensive and kind of also really hard to get your hands on, but one that you may be able to buy from like CD Japan. There's one in Korea. It's called Classic. And what's really interesting about this one is that they work with the Korean games industry, like Korean games publishers. And they've done like StarCraft concerts, Diablo concerts, like because those are really popular in Japan. But what I really remember is this I Am a Gamer concert in 2020. It was in the middle of COVID. They recorded it. It's on YouTube. It's quite hard to find because you have to type it in Korean. But that really blew my mind because it's music I haven't heard before. It's like from music from Korean games that it's like a completely new experience. They also had concert yesterday, yeah. Symphony Tales, it's mobile game that was also streamed on the Korean fans YouTube channel on YouTube. In Europe, there's Games and Symphonies in Barcelona. Now, they have a lot of YouTube views, but they're also kind of really elusive. There's not much info out there. But you can see this common trend of like having this secondary small ensemble for events. So it's cheaper and like easier to manage for financial reasons. Now, here's my personal story. I look out on the internet on all these big orchestral tours and all these different wonderful video game orchestras around the world, and I'm like praying, like, please come to Finland one day. I'm hoping and praying, and like then one day I see on my Facebook feed like a new video game orchestra has been founded in Finland. So here in Finland we have the Sibelius Academy. It's the like biggest music university, one of the biggest music universities in Europe. And the young, ambitious, talented musicians wonder like, how come nobody plays video game music professionally? So they found this all new orchestra so that it's built around the idea of playing video game music. So video game music isn't necessarily always composed for symphony orchestra. There's a lot of electronic sounds, and it's all like a different soundscape altogether. So what they decided to do is to take like a string quintet, woodwind quintet, brass quintet, and a large amount of percussionists and so on, to have like a group of 20 musicians. All of them run through, all of them are mic'd, so they're run through a mixer and mixed in with the electronic sounds. And that way, it's like a really fun listening experience when they're all like really great musicians, and they're kind of really showing off all the time. So that was the audience response to their debut concert in 2017. Like, none in the audience kind of knew what to expect because it was a completely new group and we hadn't experienced anything like this in Finland ever. Where things stand now is that they've accumulated some 20 million views on their YouTube channel. There's like really high production quality. You should totally check it out. But Game Music Collective is also aspiring to be like a studio orchestra to record soundtracks. So they actually recorded the Iron Danger soundtrack composed by Ilmari Hakkala. It has it has kind of the musical influences from Kalevala, like the national epic in Finland. They have been doing this Finnish game music album project, and it's going to be out in the end of the year, and it's going to be epic. I'm really looking forward to it. The 8-bit big band meets all of your jazz needs, and we can kind of see the same patterns of like working with MGP Live as an agency to do a tour around the US on different dates. And they also have like album production and plenty of YouTube views, so we can kind of see commonalities. And lastly, there's of course the video game orchestra. So I believe they started in like 2009 in Berkeley College of Music, and after they graduated, they wanted to keep doing video game music. So what's interesting about this one is they're kind of this rock orchestral thing. So they have this kind of smaller ensemble. There's this kind of rock band thing going on that they perform with. That's cheaper to tour with around the world. But they also work on big orchestral projects, like with 30th anniversary Sonic Symphony. And as it happens, there's the recording an album release during COVID, but now they're actually doing like official live concert tour It started out in Brazil just a few weeks ago, I think, and it's more info is coming soon. That's what I hear. Yeah, we're really short on time. Game music festivals. So there's a lot of game music festivals in Japan. Um, there's this guy, Nicholas Bruman, who went to Japan, learned all about how to do game music concerts and game music festival, and brought the idea to Finland. And we had a game music festival in Finland with international guests. I had the humble role of taping the program on the wall. We already heard a brilliant panel by Pokerus. So check that out for how game music festivals work in Latin America. There's this game music festival in Poland. I researched it, and they started out back in 2016 with Final Fantasy: A New World concert. The next year they did their own concert, and the years after that they made a game music festival, like a multi-day festival where you have multiple concerts. And the 2021 had to be well, it has limited ticket sales, but it was streamed. The 2022 was actually in London. They were kind of going even bigger. But what you can check out is that for example, 2020 Symphony of Sin, music from Divinity Original Sin 2, wonderful music, and Baldur's Gate 3 world premiere. But what's interesting about Game Music Festival is that they have this educational program, like with famous guests like Alex Mogala and Austin Wintory, that you can also, it's also up on YouTube.
All right, so I'm going to quickly go over the game festivals in the US. So the two main ones are VGMCon, which takes place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I believe this year or next year, 2023, it's going to be in April. And then there is MagFest, which takes place at National Harbor, Maryland. That's going to be this coming January in 2023. I'd like to highlight a couple of orchestral related events that I have either led or co-led at MagFest. In 2019, I co-led a panel called the Waving the Wind Waker Conductors Workshop. So basically, we had a full orchestra, and we had people who wanted to go on the conductor's podium and put their names in a hat, and we would pick like 10 people, and we had like 3 pieces that they could choose from, and then we would help the participants, give them some tips on conducting. And then in the next slide, in 2020, this was done again, but with a smaller orchestra, because the smaller ensemble is a little bit more manageable. And then in 2018, in the next slide, WMGSO performed on the main stage at MagFest, which was pretty significant accomplishment. And then in 2020, the next slide, I was a co-lead for the creation of Hyrule, which was a symphonic poem of Legend of Zelda music, which originally was 55 minutes, but we had to cut it down, but it was a great success. It was an amazing performance. So, and coming up in 2023 at MagFest this year, it's going to be the first time there's going to be a community orchestra at MagFest. So I think these orchestral activities are increasing more and more each year through some of these game festivals.
Yeah, so there's a reason why I pointed out Kenichi Shimura throughout this whole presentation. It just so happens I had the great privilege to attend Musicon in Finland. It's just a classical music festival wanting to do video game music and anime music. So Game Symphony Japan actually visited Finland this year, and I got this great photo opportunity. And I felt like this whole theme of how gay music festivals bring people together is a kind of wonderful closing thought. There's one thing I just realized throughout the presentation that I actually forgot to include in the slides, the virtual video game orchestra that has a lot of musicians from all of the previously mentioned video game orchestras submitting their recordings for their really cool projects that don't get anywhere near the attention they deserve. So I guess I want to close with this just play on words. I want you to listen to good music and play video games, or even play good music and listen to video games. Thank you, VGM Together, for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.